I always knew that land would come in handy one day. It wasn't much to look at. About 40 acres of old farmland, overgrown with weeds, bordered by dense woods and a creek that never quite dried up. It had been in my family for generations, passed down like a well-worn quilt no one wanted to throw away. But everyone was secretly glad still existed. To most people, it was just forgotten space at the edge of town. Developers had sniffed around before, but between the zoning restrictions and the confusion over boundary lines, no one had the guts or patience to untangle it. Until the new Homeowners Association came into play. The Silver Pines HOA was born out of a massive suburban project promising affordable luxury living. Big signs, bigger promises, smiling couples on billboards holding coffee mugs in perfectly manicured lawns. The sales pitch was irresistible to anyone chasing the suburban dream. The problem? Their dream was being built partly on my land. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a misdrawn line, some surveyor with bad GPS. But when the first concrete trucks rolled through the old logging trail, I knew this wasn't just an oversight, it was theft, plain and simple. I didn't lose my cool. I didn't go running into the HOA office with fists clenched and documents flying. That's not how my family raised me. My granddad used to say, "You catch bigger fish with patience, not panic." So that's what I did. I watched, I waited, I documented. They poured foundations, ran plumbing, laid electric lines, all on land I legally owned. I had the deeds, the original county plats, even aerial photos going back decades. But I didn't make a move yet. Because here's the thing about lawsuits. You only get one shot at surprise. I spent months watching them build, quietly, calmly, and with a camera in hand. Every bulldozer that crossed the creek, every cement truck that parked under the old walnut tree, I filmed it all. Dated it. Logged it. My garage turned into a war room of sorts. Maps pinned to corkboards, old survey lines highlighted in neon yellow, drone shots laid out like crime scene photos. It wasn't just the land that mattered. It was how they used it. See, under county law, any structure built without landowner permission wasn't just disputed. It was trespassing. Multiply that by 120 homes, and you've got something far more serious, massive civil liability. They thought we're dealing with some backwoods loner with a dusty pickup and no legal team. What they didn't know? My cousin is a property attorney. My sister works in zoning. My best friend from college? He runs a private investigation firm, so I let them dig themselves deeper. They put in streets, gutters, sidewalks. They even installed one of those fancy gated entrances right through my family's old soybean patch. And when they held the ribbon-cutting ceremony, all dressed in matching HOA polos, I stood back and smiled. Because what they were celebrating wasn't a grand opening. It was the beginning of the end. That same week, I had my attorney send a notice of trespass and demand to vacate to every single homeowner and the HOA board. Each letter was wrapped in a binder of evidence: satellite images, parcel documents, video logs, and county zoning violations. They ignored it, of course. They laughed it off. That was their second mistake, because their first was thinking I wouldn't notice. It started with a flurry of emails. Confused homeowners reached out to the HOA board. Some thought it was a prank. Others were terrified. A few had just moved in. Military families, retirees, young couples. They'd put their life savings into these homes only to find out they may have been built on land that legally didn't belong to them. The HOA president, a guy named Brent. You know the type. Khakis, Bluetooth earpiece, clipboard practically welded to his hand, called an emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. My buddy Dave, a landscaper who did some side work for the HOA, sent me a recording. Brent was sweating bullets. "We have a misunderstanding here, folks," he said, voice cracking. "It's a paperwork issue. I've already reached out to the developer. I'm sure this guy is bluffing." Bluffing? Right. You don't bluff with 17 years of documentation, a live deed filed with the county clerk, and an easement agreement that specifically excluded residential development. They had one option: negotiate. But instead, they sent their lawyer. The HOA's lawyer, bless her heart, showed up at my property 2 days later. She rolled up in a shiny black SUV, heels clicking across the gravel driveway like she was about to list a mansion on reality TV. She handed me a folder and said, "Let's be reasonable." The offer? They'd pay me market value for the land, just the parts under the homes, about 60 acres. Problem was, the market value they offered was based on undeveloped agricultural land prices, not developed residential plots, not the roads, not the utilities, not the damage they did grading the soil, cutting trees, draining my pond. So I smiled, handed the folder back, and said, "You built your kingdom on my dirt. I'm not selling a damn inch. I'm billing." She looked confused. "Billing?" "That's right," I said. "For every day those homes stand, you're trespassing, and I'm charging rent." After I told the HOA's lawyer I'd be charging rent instead of selling, she didn't say much. She just blinked, gave me that fake professional smile, and said, "We'll be in touch." And they were. Through a cease and desist letter claiming I was intimidating homeowners and interfering with peaceful enjoyment of property. Cute. I responded by filing a trespassing lawsuit in district court. Attached were the original deed to the land in my name, the easement documents clearly stating residential development was not allowed, drone images showing the 120 houses now sitting comfortably on my acreage, a detailed valuation prepared by a land use consultant showing fair rental value per square foot for residential land use. That's when the press got wind of it. A local station ran the headline, "Man sues HOA for building on his land without permission, 120 homes at risk." Suddenly, Brent and the HOA weren't just dealing with me. They were dealing with public opinion. Angry homeowners were now demanding answers, demanding to know how this could happen. Some of them even started reaching out to me, asking for clarity. I wasn't trying to be a villain here. These folks were caught in the middle. But at the end of the day, the HOA built homes illegally on land that didn't belong to them. That's not my fault. That's the HOA's fault. The first court date came quickly. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with silver hair and piercing eyes, leaned forward after hearing both sides and said, "Let me get this straight. You built homes on his land, and now you want him to sell it to you at a discount?" The HOA's lawyer stammered something about community interest and mitigating damages, but the judge wasn't having it. "Mr. Gaines," she said, addressing me, "you're within your rights to seek damages or rent for unauthorized use of your property. We'll begin the evidentiary hearing next month." I nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor. And just so everyone knows, I'll also be seeking restitution for environmental disruption, unauthorized utility access, and emotional distress from harassment by HOA agents." Brent's face went pale. A few board members looked like they might puke. It didn't take long for the panic to set in. Once the court confirmed that my claim had standing, the HOA members began turning on each other like rats on a sinking ship. People who had once hosted potlucks together were now serving each other legal notices. The first homeowner lawsuit was filed just days later. A young couple who'd moved in only 6 months prior sued the HOA for fraud and misrepresentation. Their claim? They were never told their house was on disputed land. They wanted out of their mortgage or compensation for buying a ticking time bomb. Then came another, and another. It snowballed. The HOA emergency board meeting was so packed that people had to stand in the back. And guess who showed up? Brent. Looking like a deflated balloon in a cheap suit, he tried to salvage his image. "This is all just a misunderstanding," he said. "We're working with legal experts and surveyors to clear this up." But one woman shouted, "How do you misunderstand a whole plot of land that wasn't yours?" It was pure chaos. Meanwhile, I stayed out of the drama. I just continued my quiet campaign, collecting drone footage, organizing public records, working with my lawyer, and preparing the rent valuation schedule. The court granted me access to file individual invoices for rent. That meant each of the 120 homeowners now received a notice estimating they owed me between $1,100 and $1,400 a month in retroactive land rent. Some ignored it. Others were furious. A few came by to talk. I explained my side calmly. I didn't build their homes. I didn't approve this development. I didn't get a dime from it. I was simply asking for fair compensation for use of my land. A few homeowners actually sided with me. "It's not your fault," one man said. "You're just cleaning up the HOA's mess." Exactly. The HOA tried to retaliate one last time. They filed a motion to eminent domain the land. Their argument? That it was in the public interest to transfer it to the HOA because families were already living on it. It was a desperate move, and it blew up in their faces. The courtroom was standing room only. Local news outlets had picked up the story by now. The headline read, "Man traps HOA with legal land ownership, 120 homes in jeopardy." Even the judge looked irritated when the HOA's lawyer tried to make the eminent domain argument. "You mean to tell me," the judge said, "that your client built 120 homes on land they did not own and now wants to seize it from the rightful owner?" The HOA lawyer squirmed in his seat. "Yes, Your Honor, for the good of the community." The judge's voice was like steel. "This court does not reward negligence and arrogance. Motion denied." Bang! With that gavel drop, I knew the tide had turned. The judge then ruled in my favor. I had full rights to my land, and any use of it without compensation was subject to rent recovery or settlement. Each home built on my property was now legally considered an unauthorized occupation, with the option for the homeowner to either pay a monthly land lease fee directly to me, offer to buy their portion of land from me outright at a market-determined premium, or vacate the land within 90 days. The HOA had one collective option left: negotiate. They called me in. Sitting at the boardroom table with Brent and his panicking board members was satisfying. "I think we can all agree," Brent said with fake humility, "that mistakes were made. But surely we can find a path forward that benefits everyone." I smiled. "Oh, I've already paved that path. It's just not free." I gave them a detailed spreadsheet showing monthly lease rates, penalties, and a timeline for settlement. The total? just under $5 million in retroactive land use and lease conversions. Silence. "Where do you expect us to get that kind of money?" Brent whispered. "Sell the clubhouse," I said. "Or maybe your house." The board offered counter deals, tried to bring in new appraisers, even threatened to drag the case on for years. I stood up and said calmly, "You built homes on my land. You ran people's lives with bogus fines. Now you'll pay your own." 3 months after the court ruling, the neighborhood looked different. Not physically. The homes were still there, the lawns still trimmed, kids still played in driveways. But the energy had shifted, because now the HOA didn't own the land. I did. They weren't in control anymore. I was the one leasing land beneath every foundation they foolishly laid without checking titles. Some homeowners were furious when they found out. "We were lied to," one yelled at Brent during a chaotic town meeting. Others just wanted peace. They reached out to me directly. I made fair deals, gave discounts to retirees, vets, and families with kids. I wasn't out to punish the homeowners. They were pawns like I had once been. But the board, especially Brent, they were done. Facing the massive debt to cover back payments, lawsuits from angry residents, and a revolt brewing within the HOA membership, the entire board resigned in disgrace. I bought the clubhouse at auction for $1. No, that's not a typo. $1. They couldn't maintain it. It was bleeding money, and I had the legal upper hand. The first thing I did, turned it into a community center. We set up a free library, a daycare run by parents, weekend BBQs, a space for local classes, from DIY home repair to yoga. The same building once used to enforce citations and collect fines now existed to serve people, and I made damn sure a giant brass plaque hung near the entrance. It read, "Private property is not public power. This land was claimed, not conquered." Brent? He tried to sue me personally afterward, for emotional distress. The judge laughed him out of the courtroom. I think he moved to Florida, or maybe just underground. No one really cared. The new HOA, formed out of necessity, was leaner, democratic, and most importantly, deferential to actual law. They held open meetings, got homeowner consent, and yes, they always triple-checked land titles now. Me, I expanded my workshop, opened a side business renting out tools and teaching land rights seminars, seriously. Every now and then, someone will ask me, "What made you set that legal trap?" And I tell them, it wasn't revenge, it was preparedness. Because when you're pushed long enough, hard enough, by people who think clipboards and codes outrank common decency, you either fold or you build your own table. They built on my land, but I built something stronger: respect, community, and an empire of hard-earned justice. So if the next HOA ever forgets to read the fine print, they'll find my name on it, in bold.